welcome back to Sundays in the Garden. If you're new here, my name is Sarah, and on this channel I share all of the things I'm getting up to in my English cottage garden and kitchen garden area. I share things like monthly garden tours, garden jobs videos, what I'm getting up to in the garden, and tips and tricks. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I would love for you to subscribe and join our growing gardening community. We're now at the end of October and we changed the clocks last night, so the nights are going to be darker here in the United Kingdom. And I've been busy this month clearing areas of the garden and getting it all ready to tuck up for the winter, but there is still things growing and going on, so I'll share those things with you as we go around the garden. Down here by the house, the dahlias are now in full bloom. I'm cutting them every single day to put a few on the kitchen windowsill, and they are just a delight. So many different colours here, and I probably will be adding some more to the collection next year. They've all done really well. Some of them are in their first year, some of them are in their second year. I'll show you them briefly now. So as you can see, it really is quite a dahlia jungle out here, and I just love it. These are the pink pom-pom varieties, but my favourites are always the oranges, burnt oranges and yellows, because they just scream autumn and autumn beauty to me. I've also planted up a few winter pots. So we have this one here which has got the heather at the back, the cyclamen here at the front, and then the ivy trailing off the front. I'll lift that up for you so you can see it. But I've got one like this here out in the back, and I've also got some by the front door of our house as well, so welcoming my students who I teach in the evenings and visitors and family when they arrive. There have been some really big changes at the back of the garden as well, and all the blackberry canes have been dug out, but I kept 4 different canes, dug them up and planted them in these pots. So I'm going to be moving them back up there, because I will talk to you in a moment about the plans we have for that area. The pond is still looking pretty similar to it was at this time last month. Dieback is continuing, and it now just needs a big clear back, cut back, ready to go to sleep for the winter months, and then it will just remain pretty much the same next year, because I like all of the things we have in here. The only changes that I want to make really are, there is a plant that has sadly died at the back here, which I would quite like to dig out and replace. And then down here, the lavender is getting really woody, and it's been there since we moved in. I've taken 2 cuttings from the lavender because we used it in our wedding confetti. Let me show you that here, and it still continues to do well. So hopefully I can plant those in this space next year. Behind the shed here we have my terracotta pots, which are all filled with my spring bulbs. We have tulips, daffodils, muscari, crocuses, all tucked up safe and sound, ready for the spring. And then just next to these spring bulb pots we have the spring bulb border, which is filled with snowdrops, daffodils, irises and lots of other lovely spring flowering bulbs. I add to that collection every year, so it gets better and better. It just needs a surface level weed now, and then I will leave it to do its thing over the winter months, ready to spring into life next year. Next to the spring border is the summer flowering border with the Crocosmia lucifer and a variety of other lovely plants. These are all now just waiting to die back to be cut back for the winter. The fuchsia is still producing some flowers, but that needs cutting back over the next month or 2 as well. And some of the climbing roses need a bit of a prune and attaching to the fence. So this area will have its annual tidy up in a few weeks' time. And another area of the garden that's almost ready for its autumn tidy up is this loosestrife here. It just needs cutting back down to ground level, ready to spring into life again next year. And then we come to the first area of massive transformation this month, and this is our shady winter border. This is how the border was looking in September, and if you look back over my previous videos, you will see how I went about transforming it. So in this area, I've obviously got my variety of hellebores. We have Victoria, this is this one here, the single-headed purple flower, and then we have Elena, which is the lotus flower style pinky purpley one, and then the white one is called Alma. And I also have this lovely new Astilbe, which is called To Have and To Hold, and I planted that in honour of mine and my husband's 20th year together this year. and it's now obviously dying back. Once it's fully died back, I will cut it down to the ground, ready for flowering again next year. I've also got this Brunnera here, lamb's ear, really pretty and should work well in the shade. I've got the chocolate ruffles heuchera down there and the orangeberry heuchera over there. And I've also got the new fern down over here as well, which is the Anthurium nipponicum metallicum. And it has the lovely purpley stems and then the kind of dark green, metallic almost looking fronds that come off of it. So I'll show you that briefly now. And I'm really pleased with how the hellebores are doing in this area, because when I first put them in, they looked a bit sorry for themselves and some of the flowers were starting to droop, but they're all starting to perk up now and they're looking really happy in their new spot. So that's brilliant. Looking now at this area of the garden, I need to sweep up all the leaves covering the decking area and probably sweep them over onto that back section there to act as a nice mulch to cover the tulip section. But let me show you what's going on up here. So this is where I was trying to grow some of my sweet peas. So it had the teepee structure here and then lots of things that were springing up along the edges that I didn't want. I have a couple of alliums just over here, the verbena to my left, and the verbena is still there. I'm going to let that die back, and then hopefully we'll have some lovely verbena in this area again next year. I've also got some more alliums that match the two alliums. They're the white alliums, the large headed ones. I can't remember the name of them, but I will go and have a look and try and put it at the bottom of the screen. But I've got two of those in here already, and when I went to Gardeners World Live, I bought 3 more bulbs so I could put them all the way along here and have them as like a structural element as you walk up past the greenhouse into the kitchen garden area. So those are going in probably today. Actually, I'll pop those in alongside the other 2. And then under here are the tulips that I put in last November, and they were beautiful in April. I haven't lifted them, so I'm going to see how they do again next spring and hope that they haven't rotted in the ground. I don't think they've been dug up by the squirrels, which is great. So we'll see how they do in April time next year, and I'll share that with you. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure that you subscribe so you can see how the garden looks in spring, because it's always magical to watch it come back to life. Down here next to the greenhouse, I normally have my pots along here with cornflowers and a variety of other things. I've moved some of the pots just to here for now, and in this area I have planted about 30 daffodil bulbs all along here, so I'm hoping that this will be filled with daffodils in the springtime, but we haven't done that before. It's usually just been an area for pots, so I think that will be really nice and hopefully they'll do really well in there. So here in the greenhouse things are much quieter now. We are at the end of October. I've cleared away the last of the tomatoes. There are some that were still there yet to ripen, so I've taken them off the vine and put them on the kitchen windowsill in a bowl. So hopefully they will ripen over the next week or so, and we'll be able to use some of those. One final baby cucumber came off of the cucumbers. And the aubergines have also been cleared away. So we now have this area down here. So as you can see, it's completely clear now. I've just got to get rid of the dahlias that didn't take earlier in the season and get rid of the compost and clear that away. But I'm thinking last year I had rows of lettuce in here, which was really quite nice to have growing over the winter period because they did quite well. So I might do that, but if anyone's got any ideas of things I could put in here, please let me know. What do you have growing in your greenhouse over the winter, or polytunnels? I've got garlic outside in the beds. I'm going to be sowing my broad beans in November because I did those in November last year and they did really well. So they're going out next month. But what could I grow in here? Let me know in the comments. In terms of the greenhouse, at the end of the growing season, there is a lot of rubbish to sort out and clear away. So like I said, we've got the dahlias there. We have pots down there that have been used, emptied, and are just sort of stacked up. A bag of rubbish over here, some pots again that were used and need to be cleared away. tray of dead compost here and some tools that need cleaning up, and these where I use for my cucumber support is now just sitting here. So it'll be great to give this whole area a clear out. Under here we've got things that we use to cover up veggies that are now finished with, an old watering can that's broken. So I did do a nice greenhouse sort out, I think it was September, October time last year. So if you look back on my old videos, you can find out when I last did a proper clean out of the greenhouse, but it all needs doing again. And I also need to clean some of these glass panels and just do a general tidy up, ready for next year. And now we come up here to the kitchen garden area, where you can see there have been some really big changes at the back here. The strawberry bed needs a good tidy up and a weed. This is my little Peter Rabbit bed, and it did have all my lettuces, radishes, and my perpetual spinach. The perpetual spinach is still going over here, but the lettuces and the radishes have finished, and we're getting some forget-me-nots popping up in here. So I love forget-me-nots, and we used to have a lot more in the garden, but they have kind of disappeared over the years. So I think I'm going to move these forget-me-nots out of the salad bed and try and find new homes for them, because I do love some forget-me-nots in the garden. The rhubarb has well and truly finished, and I really need to weed this bed back to a tidier state, and then decide whether this rhubarb is staying in here or whether I'm going to move it and put the strawberries in this bed. But that is still to be confirmed, because we have something new coming and the strawberries may actually move somewhere else entirely. Our herbs are still providing us with plenty for the kitchen. I'm going to cut them back because there's lots of new growth underneath and lots of old growth at the top. So I'm going to cut these back to smaller plants and then let them kind of overwinter and see how they do over the winter months. I had a bit of a drama in the brassica bed. I'll insert my Instagram post on that so you can see what's been happening. So here is what we're left with today. As you can see, these ones back here have been really munched, and there are still some sprouts, but I don't hold out much hope of them fattening up very much. And that's on all of these ones here actually. I think there's 4 plants, if not 5, that have had that level of attack. So such a shame. But down here, this one has fared a bit better, and the sprouts on this one are fattening up quite nicely, if you can see in here. So I'm holding out hope for this plant, and all I can do now is a daily check for caterpillars. So I'm pulling it all back and checking what is going on in there and removing any that I see. But a real shame. I'm not sure how I can sort of combat this next year, to be honest, because I thought the netting would keep out the butterflies, and it did seem to for a long time, but they've obviously got in there somehow, and I can't even really work out how. But clearly they have, because all the caterpillars are in there, or were in there, munching them. So any kind of tips on how to keep them out other than just netting them, please let me know. It could just be a case that I need to check it much more regularly and not assume that the net is doing the protecting for me. But definitely going to give it a go again next year and keep a closer eye on them. This bed here is where the broad beans are going in November, so I will put them in here as I did last year in the bed over here, and hopefully they'll do as well in this bed as they did in the other one, because they were absolutely amazing. In this bed I've got my onions and my garlic. I have got some Garkua softneck. I've got some elephant garlic over there. I've got some cork white hardneck garlic, which the lovely Claire at the Farmyard Garden gave to me when we were at Malvern. So that's in there. And then over here I have got all of my onions. They are radar onions, all of them. So we will see how they do. I am seeing regular signs of them being dug up here, as you can see. So I'm having to kind of try and get them back in the ground again. Excuse me doing this while holding a camera. They are rooting really well, because look at this. Brilliant. Absolutely amazing. That's my elephant garlic. But it has been dug up. So I'll see if I can get it back in again. Bless it. So garlic puts down its roots before it throws up any leaves. So you don't tend to see much happening for a few weeks in the garlic bed because it's doing all the work under the ground with its roots. It's a bit further in. Tuck it up and hope for the best. Then down in the bed to the right hand side of the garlic and the onions, I did put in some turnips. I think it was in August, just before we went on holiday, and there are signs of something growing in here. I'll turn it around and show you. So we have this, we have this, we have one over there. Is that a turnip? I've never grown turnips before, and I popped them in because I thought it would be quite a nice winter vegetable, and I don't really know what's going on, and there's not much coming up, just these few, but they do look different to anything else I've ever seen up here, so I think they might be turnips. I could obviously dig around and have a look what's going on underneath, but I don't really want to disturb them, so I'm just leaving them because nothing's going in here at the moment anyway. So that's what's happening in this bed. Hopefully a few turnips. And then, as you can see, the nasturtiums are still going strong. We haven't had a frost that's been hard enough to kill them off, the same as the dahlias. I don't think it'll be long now before we get a frost that finishes off the dahlias and the nasturtiums here. But while they're still going, I'm harvesting the flowers to make nasturtium tea. If you have a look on my shorts on the channel, you'll see how I make nasturtium tea, and it's really delicious and a brilliant immune booster for this time of year. Because it has amazing antibiotic and vitamin properties. So the courgettes have come out here. We had our last courgettes off of the plant, and now this bed just needs a good weed ahead of the next season. And once the nasturtiums have all finished, they will all come out as well. The runner beans have now all been stripped back from the archway, as you can see, and I have left the roots in the ground because Annie at Annie's Kitchen Garden left the roots of her runner beans in last year, and they regrew. I didn't realise that runner beans are actually perennial, so because I'm intending to grow runner beans up this arch again next year anyway, I thought I'd leave the roots in the ground and see if any regrow, because that will add extra crop and potentially make an earlier crop next year. So I thought I'd leave them in and see what happens, so I'll share that with you next year. In the pumpkin bed, I'm going to harvest the last of the pumpkins as well. They have turned orange. One is still slightly green, but they're pretty much orange in time for Halloween, which is in 4 days time, so that's brilliant. And I'm going to make some pumpkin spice latte with them, and I'm going to make some pumpkin pie, and we're going to carve them as well for some lanterns, Halloween lanterns for the boys, so that's brilliant. Next year I think I'm going to try and grow some smaller varieties. We always go pumpkin picking at our local pumpkin field, and we can use the larger varieties that are grown there in a much bigger space for carving and to make pies and things like that. So I think I'm going to make grow some smaller ones to see if I can make, I've seen people make lovely like soups inside a miniature pot, pumpkin, you know, miniature squash, and just make some yummy meals, stuffed pumpkins, stuffed squash, that kind of thing. So if anyone's got any varieties they would recommend, please let me know in the comments. I'm also debating whether to put in a second archway. So I've got the runner bean arch. Let me lift you up and talk you through it. So here's the kitchen garden area. The runner bean arch is now finished, but I could put in another archway here between these two beds or between those two beds. My concern about putting in another arch would be light, because if I'm growing things up an arch, I could block light from one side or the other, because the sun mainly comes in from this side. But the courgettes were over here on the opposite side of the arch when the beans were all in full growth and flower, and they did fine down here, so they obviously got enough sun in that area. So probably, you know, we would get enough sun here depending on what I'm growing, maybe planting things that require less sun. But let me know what you think. Should I add in another set of arches here or here to grow the pumpkins up so I could have pumpkins and beans, or leave it as it is? What do you think? And then finally, the biggest change in the garden is this back section. So last month, if you go back to September's video, you can see what this looked like. We'd already spent some time clearing this area, and I was using it with my table and chairs to sit and enjoy sitting in the kitchen garden in the evening light, because the sun sits beautifully here at the end of the day, summer and winter. So this area has been cleared for a while, but the back section over here was still really weedy and full of all my blackberry canes, which I love, but it had got completely out of control to the point that I couldn't really get at the blackberries, and it was a bit of an unusable space. So we've cleared it all, and something very exciting is coming. I shared some updates over what is coming here on my Instagram page, so let me see if I can insert some clips now, and you can guess what it might be. Hello guys, it is here. Let me do a little sneak preview and see if anyone can guess what it might be. Does anyone have any ideas? Thanks to all of your wonderful views, the amazing team at First Tunnels have gifted me a bespoke, custom-made fruit. So yes, this area is going to have a wonderful fruit cage. It's 2 meters, it's been built bespoke by First Tunnels, and it's 2 meters by 3.91 meters, so nearly 4 meters. So I think it should be, I'm going to have it short ways this way, and let me turn you around, I can point. So 2 meters this way across, and then the longer side this way. So I'm hoping, this is a very large area, we'll still be able to have the fruit cage here and a sitting area here to enjoy the garden, but it's going to make such a big difference to what I can grow. Things like blueberries we have down by the house, and we tend to get a reasonable amount, but the birds can attack them, so I could put the blueberries up here. We could move the strawberries in there. For Christmas, my parents are going to get me a lovely bed to go inside the cage, so I can put my raspberries in there. And what else am I intending to put in there? I've got some raspberry canes that need to go in. Oh, the blackberry canes that I've taken from this area can go back in here in a more manageable fashion. So it's really going to make a massive difference, and I can't wait to share it with you. Hopefully I'm going to be building it over the next few weeks, because we're away for 2 weekends in November. So if I could get it done before that, that'd be amazing. If not, then it'll be afterwards. But stay tuned and follow along, because there'll be a whole episode on putting up the fruit cage and what we do with the area. I really love this time of year because it gives you that breathing space to get on top of some bigger projects that you just don't get time to do the rest of the year. So for example, this big area of clearing, getting the hellebore bed sorted and all the hellebores in, all that kind of thing. I'm looking forward to cleaning the greenhouse out, sorting these beds out. Some of them I may not use over the winter, so they'll just be covered over, cleared and covered over, but it's just nice to have that breathing space to reevaluate things, plan for next year, and enjoy the garden when it's slightly quieter, but there's still warmth in the sun in the afternoon. So this is how the kitchen garden area is looking in October. I would love to sweep this area to get it all clean and fresh, sort all these beds out, make sure that my broad beans are happy in there and my onions and garlic are growing well. Anything else you would put in at this time of year, do let me know. It's getting a bit late to sow anything now, but if there's anything else you would put in over the winter, then let me know, and I'll see if I can source some things to fill up any empty spaces. But really excited to use all of this extra space that we have here. I mean, it's really, really very large, and it was completely wasted space before we did all this clearing. If you go back to my channel videos of garden tours for January, perhaps, maybe April time, you will see how this whole area was unusable, and we've made it now into an area that we can use for growing. I mean, I could put in a bed. I'm tempted to put in a very small bed or a couple of really large pots over here by the fence, because there's a good amount of sun here much of the day, so I could either grow cut flowers over there by my sitting area to enjoy. My granddad's cornflowers could go in there, or something like that. So this could be more growing space as well as the sitting area. But now with this wonderful fruit cage, I've got so many possibilities of what I can do in this area of the garden and the fruit I can grow and protect. So follow along to see how this grows and develops over the coming months and years. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again next week, where I'll be resharing my garden jobs for November and sharing more from the kitchen garden and cottage garden.